All right, hello and welcome to day 2 training session of UPSTL. We're starting with turn code training session. This is also a recap of what the theme has been given to you, just to make sure that everybody is actually really clear. Um, Theme is different and topic is different. I am going to give you the topic by the end of your turn code training today. So you will get your turn code topics today. Don't worry. Theme is just for you to get a hint of what kind of topics can come. So economic edge, wealth of wits is the theme of the tournament. And that basically means most of the topics that you get are going to be inspired by the theme, which is economy, economic policies, economic interactions, etc. So that is about theme. And I think this was also told to you yesterday. Turncoat is an individual event where the speaker does not just choose a side, but speaks for both sides, for and against the motion. The time limit for you all is 4 minutes. And basically, in the 4 minutes, you're supposed to do a couple of things. The first thing is introduction. The second thing is speaking for the motion. Third thing is transition. Fourth thing is speaking against the motion. And last thing is conclusion. Introduction, for, transition, against, and conclusion. So this is how your speech should ideally look like. And I'm going to tell you what the division of your speech should also look like. So here's what the division of your speech should look like. And this specifically for you to be able to efficiently utilize your time. And so you make sure that you're actually balancing out both sides, which is proposition, which is for the motion and against the motion. So because you guys are in middle category, stop annotating whoever it is. Okay, because you're in middle category, you're supposed to first give 30 seconds introduction, then give arguments for the motion, which is for 1 minute 30 seconds, and then argument against the motion, which is for 1 minute 30 seconds, and then conclusion of speech, which is going to be for 30 seconds. The question that I'm going to ask you is then, when exactly are you supposed to give transition in the chat box? So where here in the speech are you supposed to give transition of your speech? Can anyone tell me in the chat box? Let me see. After 2 minutes. Lavanya, that's correct. After two minutes, which is essentially after you're done with giving your arguments for the motion. So I think if the division is clear, let me just now move towards the tips and tricks for your turn code. The first tip is basically for your introduction. So your introduction that you're going to speak for 30 seconds is supposed to make sure that it is basically catchy. It is basically able to create hook towards the audience, which means it should be interesting. I should basically as a judge be, willing to listen to more of your speech. I don't want your speech to get to end at any point of time. It's basically your speech is so interesting, so engaging that I want to continue listening to you. So as judges basically sit for a really long time. They're listening to multiple speeches. So I think it's really good strategy to start your speech with something that is basically very engaging, something that it creates interest in the judge, because you're making the first impact on judge. So you can basically start with a rhetorical statement, which is basically, did you know? And then you can give a very interesting fact or statistic. Or you can start with a quote, which is basically, I quote William Shakespeare, and so on and so forth. So that basically helps judges know, you know what, I have listened to this quote, it's really interesting. Or I know this personality, that's really interesting. So that basically makes sure that you're creating that line of engagement in the speech. The second tip that I'm going to give you is about rebutting your own points. What it essentially means is that if you're speaking something for the motion, try to rebut it in your against the motion. What it means is, let's say you're saying that if the motion is this house would ban smoking, and you're saying smoking is bad because it creates addiction, and a lot of people are forced to smoke specifically because peer pressure in wherever you're working or wherever you're studying, etc. If that is the argument, that proposition is that you're speaking in your for the motion, when you're speaking against the motion, you can essentially say how smoking is a choice and it's not something that is coerced to you, even irrespective of whether this argument is strong or weak. I was just giving you an example. So try to rebut your own points, because essentially that shows that you actually researched well and you tried to give both sides of the same argument. So that's really interesting as well. The third tip is for your transition. So make sure your transition is catchy, and also like it could be humorous if you want to, right? So it could be simply something that signifies that you're moving from for the motion to against the motion, and it should clearly make a crisp break in your speech. Again, it should be organic. So it shouldn't be like, I have spoken for the motion, now I will speak against the motion. You're supposed to make a proper break between your speech. How can you do it? So, for example, some people can say, panel, forget whatever I said in the last 1 minute, or like, I think for you all, it's forget whatever I said in the last 2 minutes. I do not quite know what possessed me for the last 2 minutes. So that's something you can say as well. So this is basically a good way of getting the attention of the panel and audience. So you're trying to create a good, engagement between the speeches as well. So that's what you can do in your speeches. The thing that I'm going to tell you in terms of, like whether this is the only way is not true. You can basically use any way. Again, you can come up with creative ideas to have good transitions in your speech. The next thing is have equal number of arguments both sides. So if I'm going to make 3 arguments for the motion, I will try to make sure that I'm also making 3 arguments against the motion. Last thing about conclusion. In the 30 seconds of your conclusion, try to make a balance between both sides. So try to make sure that the balance is in such a way that it basically tells the judge that irrespective of the positives or negatives of both sides, the idea is it should be balanced, which is why the topic exists. So for example, yes, harms of smoking exist, but that doesn't mean that we should ban it. There are other ways to control it. Okay, so this is the tips and tricks. Let's move towards an example, okay? This is the example for this house would ban smoking. So if this is my topic, what can I do is essentially I can give you, so the introduction here, and I want you to absorb the introduction for a second, read it. The introduction tries to give a very interesting fact, like a statistic about 3 billion people who actually smoke. And why do they actually smoke? So it creates an introduction of like, telling people that, what the reason as to why this debate is important or the topic is important is because a lot of people are actually smoking and it's impacting them a lot more. So that's why it's important. Then arguments for the motion. So when we say and talk about arguments for the motion, this is just the claims. You're still supposed to elaborate them, which means you would still have to give reasoning and example and explain them well. So what you can do is if for the motion, you're giving 3 arguments, for example, health effects, environment effects, or effects on children, etc. Then once you're done with giving your arguments for the motion, you would go to the transition. Now transition is here, okay? So I'm going to read it out. It says, just because smoking has these harms that I told you, doesn't mean that you need to ban it and that there is no benefit at all. Let me tell you why, in fact, we should not ban smoking. And then you can go forward with the opponents. You also are scored for the transition. So if it is smooth, if it is crisp, it is nice and interesting, you're obviously going to be scored more. Then you can elaborate on your arguments against the motion, and then you can conclude. So what the conclusion here could look like. So even though smoking is surely injurious to your health, but banning is not the solution to it. We should have things like rehabilitation programs, awareness campaigns, in order to educate people regarding the bad effects of smoking. So you try to create a balance between both sides. So that is the thing about your example. I'll see if there are any questions. Ma'am, in conclusion, can we tell which side? No, do not give your personal opinions because then it shows that you're biased towards one side. Try to give a balanced opinion. Okay, now is the marking rubric. Now, how are you exactly scored? You're scored out of 30. And the way how it works is that you are scored matter, manner, and method. So 10 marks for matter, 10 marks for manner, and 10 marks for method. Matter basically means what is the content? Are you actually speaking relevant to the topic? Do you have quality of argument? Did you have good research? Are you using good examples? All of that is going to be seen. Then manner is, again, for 10 marks, where you're seeing whether you by-hearted your speech. Did you actually make eye contact, or are you reading off the document? If you're reading, obviously your score is going to be lesser. Did you use expressions? Did you have hand gestures? Or did you have voice modulation? You have rhetorical question. All of that is going to be seen in matter. The last thing is method, where it is seen basically or on whether or not you're sticking to the proper time limit that has been given to you. Did you actually speak equal number of arguments for both sides? Did you actually create a balance in your conclusion? And did you try rebutting your own argument in your speech? So all of that is going to be seen in method. So matter, manner, method are the 3 criteria for how the judges are actually scoring you. The next thing is going to be basically your topics. So I'm not going to release it right now. I want to give you guys the time to no, judges are not going to ask you questions.
Yeah,
I'm
you
going
can
to
chat box.
yes, judges are not going to ask you any question. Um, which side will we do conclusion from, for or against? No, you're not taking a side in your conclusion. You're making a balance between both of them. Are you supposed to introduce yourself? So you introduce yourself before the speech. So before your 4 minutes marks actually starts. So probably mention your name. For example, my name is Afteen, and I'm from, let's say, 8th grade. And then you can start your speech in 3, 2, 1. This is not included in your time, so make sure about that. Also, you don't need to give like extended introduction of who you are, and your introduction does not count in the time. So yes, so we will give you topics. The next thing that I'm going to give you is the topics. So if there are no more questions, I'm going to go forward with the topics. If you want to mention your school, you can. The judges already have your data, so there's nothing. Time of turn quote. Are you asking about the schedule, or are you asking about speech time? Speech time is 4 minutes, and time for turn quote is 9 a.m. 5th May. Yes, you can use any other statement for transition. Rhetorical questions are basically not questions that you want the audience to answer. For example, did you know 3 billion people actually smoke around the world? So I'm asking you that, did you know about it? But I'm not like expecting an answer from you. So I'm not like expecting you to say yes or no. Rhetorical question is the question that is not supposed to like or meant to be answered. It's just a question for creating suspense. You can make one speech for both rounds. Yes, the slides will be shared. I already shared an example of introduction in the last slide, Saisha. So you won't be told whether when the time for the motion and against the motion is over, but what you would essentially be known is going to be yeah, so you just know the time is 4 minutes, and on 4 minutes you'll get the bell. So you have to individually like time yourself, but also the judges are seeing whether you're sticking to the time limit, but they won't like they won't continue to type it on the chat box that your 1 minute is over, 2 minutes is over. The time would probably be shared in the on the Zoom link, so you would be able to know from there. How do you conclude? So introduction, you're going to give an opening statement. Opening statement can be a rhetorical question, an interesting fact that you can say, or you can quote someone else. Then you can give like a 20 seconds understanding of what the motion is about. So for example, you can talk about why smoking should be banned and why smoking exists in the first place. And then you can start with for the motion and then against the motion. So you're giving a context in your introduction. Your conclusion is basically a balance between both sides. So you don't have to take a side and say that, in my opinion, I think smoking should be banned, but you can tell us the why, let's say, both sides, like the points from both sides actually make sense. Please do not annotate whoever it is. I can see it. Okay, let's go to the motions because I'll also have to explain you the motions. Okay.
Just stop sharing. Yuvraj, would you like to exit the call if you are restless? I hope you understand that if I exit you on from the call, you will not be able to join any further sessions. After just stop sharing and then share again. I don't want to see any more annotations, please. Okay, just share again. And Yuvraj, don't do that again. We can see you. Okay, so after we can share the motion, they're all disciplined.
I'm sharing the motions now. Please pay attention here. So the topic for round 1 and 2 are same. The topic is India should reduce the retirement age in lieu of high youth unemployment rates. So the idea is that there is a lot of unemployment in youth in India, and because of which should we actually reduce the retirement age of people? So retirement age tends to be 58 to 62. Should we reduce it to even lesser, probably 55 or 50? And if yes, why should it be? Or if no, why should it not be? So when you're for the motion in the same speech, when you're speaking for the motion, you're saying why we should actually reduce the retirement age. And when you're against the motion, you're saying no, we should not decrease or reduce the retirement age. If there are any questions put in the chat box, I will deal with them. You can use flashcards, but as I mentioned, Turncode is a speaking event, like a public speaking event, where you are also judged for your manner. So if you're continuously looking at your flashcard and paper, you're going to be demarked for it. Is there any doubt for this motion? This particular motion, so this topic, any doubts? I will release the motion for round 3, but as I'm asking you to tell me if there are any doubts for round 1 and round 2. No, you cannot choose whether you're speaking only against or for. You need to speak for both, and you need to follow the structure that has been given to you. So I'm going to explain it again. Listen to it carefully. There is a lot of unemployment, which is basically not having jobs in youth. So youth is basically like people who are above like 18 years of age. So if there is a lot of unemployment, they don't have jobs. Should we reduce the retirement age of elderly people? So retirement age technically and generally around India is 58 to 62. So if this is the retirement age, should we reduce it or should we not reduce it? Is the topic. So on proposition, you would say India should reduce the retirement age. So when you're supporting it, you're saying India should reduce the retirement age. When you're opposing it, you're saying no, India should not reduce the retirement age. Okay, let's go to the next topic then. The next topic is individuals should buy from local shops as opposed to corporate outlets like Reliance, Max, Trends, etc. So this is motion for round 3. When you're supporting the motion, you're saying that, you know what, individuals should buy from local shops. And when you're opposing it, you're saying, no, I mean, it's okay for individuals to buy from corporate outlets and like Reliance, Max, and Trends as well. So it's basically local shops like, like these local clothes shops that you have, local um, grocery shops that you have, or local, like vegetable shops and mandis that you have, as opposed to these, like these corporate outlets that you see around the world. I think Big Basket is not there anymore, but Big Basket could also be an example. Reliance could be an example. Max could be an example. All of them. So, are there any doubts for third motion? Yes, you need to prepare for all 3 rounds. And then whoever is saying, can you read the same speech in both rounds? You can if you want to for the first 2 rounds. The speech for third round is going to be different. No, third round is also online. All 3 rounds are going to happen online on 5th of May. These topics are for 5th of May. You can refer to the paper, but you cannot read out from the paper. I think I have been mentioning it a couple of times now. Interact with audience, as in you're not supposed to interact with audience because there is only going to be participants and judges in the room. What I mean by engage with the audience, I mean is talk things that audience is like talk things and speak things that the audience is interested in listening. No, Pranya, that's not for Turncode, that's for APD. Yes, the third round topic is the same that I already released. So turncoat, all 3 rounds are prepared. Nothing is going to be released before the round. So you know rounds, topics for round 1, 2, and 3, all of them.
We'll just post all the topics also on your group. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I see no more questions. Then I'm gonna stop sharing. All right, are there any more questions? Will the marks be? No, the marks will not be deducted, Arun. Motion means topic, yes, correct. Finals or offline, correct. Okay, so Palakshi, I think that's a very good question. I want you to read and find out because we have researched about it and we know that there is a direct link between both of them. So research about it, there is a direct link, and you would find out why that is actually a motion. But if I'll give you the link and why they are related, I think I'll give you arguments. I'm not telling you. So all the turncode students, if your doubts are clear, you can leave the meeting. And see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to practice motions. Finals is offline, yes. Finals is 11th of May. Fiona, we have given the information to the judges as to who is going to speak and all of that, so don't worry. So APD ones who are just joining for medal categories, your training is going to start in the next 3 minutes. So we haven't started APD training yet. All the turncode students, please leave unless you have any doubt. All those people who have raised their hands, please put it in the chat box. So there is no qualifying in first 3 rounds. So what it basically means is, irrespective of anything, you will play 3 rounds on 5th of May. So you will have to prepare for both the speeches that both the speeches as in round 1, round 2, round 3 speeches. So since it is prepared motion, you can basically research from wherever you want to. Again, I suggest that you research from credible sources like good websites. You will get certificates for participation as well. There is no level for that. You can speak the same speech in round 1 and round 2. Judges will not question you. The difference between round 1 and round 2 is that It's basically for you to be able to like make your speech perfect and you're able to practice it well. So you're given 2 chances for the same speech, and they're going to be different judges for both rounds. So there's fair chance given to you for both sides. So for both the judges for the rounds that you're going to attend. Timing for TC qualifiers is 9. Timing for APD is going to be 3 p.m. Okay, turn code. All of you all, please leave. Turn code students, please leave. For APD students who are looking for their team, don't worry. You will be able to know your teams by the end of today's session. So don't worry about that. Anjali ma'am, are you able to speak?
Yeah, now I'm able to speak. And so turn code, please understand it's an individual speech event. You don't have a team. I saw that question, so I got a little concerned. Asian Parliamentary Debate is a team event, and I will take the attendance at around 7:28. So don't worry. If you don't know each other, then we will make sure that you get to know each other. Okay, we will exchange those notes for you. Okay, so tall turncoats, can I please see you exit so that we focus on Asian parliamentary students, because we have quite a few teams there also. So I'm just giving it another 30 seconds. All turncoat students, you can leave your doubts over here and then leave the call. Satakshi, Arnav, got it? Leave the comments over here. We'll be able to address it anyway. Right? So with that, Afrin ma'am, we are at 7. So let's start Asian Parliamentary, and I will take their attendance once. Don't leave without giving your attendance, all the Asian Parliamentary students, because it's important that you know your team members, especially because ma'am will release the motions today. Okay? What is, Mitshui, what does the code mean? Will I get a code? What is the code? Okay, all turncoat, please exit. Let's get started. Afrin. Arna, if you don't know if whether you're in turncoat or Asian parliamentary, stay on the call. I will take the attendance at the end of the hour. Afrin, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Before I start APD training, I want to ask you all a couple of questions from APD. And that is basically based on the training session that you attended yesterday. So we're going to play fastest fingers first, which is basically essentially me asking you questions, and then put it in the chat box. Whoever gets the answers first, I'm going to mention them, and I'm obviously going to be really happy that you are able to answer these questions. Great. So everyone, their hand should be on chat box. I am asking a couple of questions. This also acts as a recap. Okay, so starting first question. How many members are there in one team in APD? Okay, three. Who got it first? Arna, great. Okay, so the next question that I have, the correct answer is 3. The next question is basically the team that supports the motion is opposition. True or false? Okay, everybody started writing government and proposition already. Okay, wonderful. Okay, great. The next question I have. The terms affirmative, proposition, and government are all same. So all those saying true are correct. Term, proposition, government, or affirmative, pro, all of them are same terms, which is basically essentially used for people who are supporting the motion. Wonderful, great. The next question that I have is, do you have POIs for middle category in the chat box? The answer is yes, you do have POIs in middle category. What is the full form of POI? Yes, so the answer is point of info. Sharav, that's correct. Wonderful. Okay. What should be the size of a POI? So how long can a POI be? So, okay, Kyra, that's correct. 15 seconds. It's actually Aryahi. Great Aryahi. Okay, 15 seconds. How much time or buffer time should I actually have between the first POI that I asked to the second POI? So when can I offer the next POI? The answer is 30 seconds. So for example, if I offer a POI right now and you reject it, I cannot offer a POI again before 30 seconds have elapsed. This is to make sure that speakers aren't being heckled. So a lot of times what happens is that POI, 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 a lot of speakers do that. It's really, really like, not just like irritating for the speaker, but also very distracting for the speaker. So we don't allow that. So heckling is strictly not allowed. Make sure that 30 seconds grace period has been given to the speaker. Also, speaker, the one who is speaking, has full ability to reject the POI as well. So them not taking POI should not actually offend you simply because I think that's their decision. So you can take your decision of whether you want to take POI or not. But we always encourage individuals to take and ask POIs. Amazing. So the next question I have is, when exactly can you ask POI? In the chat box. Fast. So POI, I think there's some confusion. So POI can be asked in unprotected time, which is basically any time which is not the first minute and the last minute of your speech. For middle category, it is going to be, so you can ask POIs from 1 minute, 1 second to 2 minutes, 59 seconds. So the moment it goes to the mark 3, you cannot ask anything. I hope that is clear. So you can ask POIs between the 2 minutes. You cannot ask POI in the last minute and first minute. Why is that the case? So in the first minute, the speaker is just establishing their case. In the last minute, they're concluding their case. So it's just pointless to ask them POI at that point of time. All right. I think that is clear. And I think most of you all are clear. The last question I have is, how many topics will you be receiving today? Somebody says 2, 3, oh. So whoever said 1 first, Sarah, is correct. You will only receive 1 topic today, which is going to be the same topic for round 1 and 2. So round 1 and round 2 topic is the same. Round 3 topic you'll get on the spot. The last question then, I mean, there are a lot of last questions, but again, you guys are being really nice. I'm just trying to ask you a question that you're not able to answer. So last question, hopefully, is, what is the prep time for middle category? Prep time for impromptu motion. Yes, it is 30 minutes. All right. Prep time is 30 minutes. And we're now going to start with APD training for you. So I think this is clear. So APD is basically 3 versus 3, where each speaker has a definite role, and the roles I'm going to explain to you in a bit. The second one is that, again, one team is supporting the motion, one team is like opposing the motion, and you get 4 minutes per speaker. I think the bigger question to ask here is, when will you get to know whether you're supporting the motion or opposing the motion? It is on the spot. So right now, the topic that you get for the round 1 and round 2, you're supposed to prepare both sides of the topic. So prepare a speech for the motion and prepare a speech against the motion. On the spot at 3 o'clock on 5th of May, we would tell you for round 1, are you proposition? So if you're proposition in round 1, it's likely that you're going to be opposition in round 2. So both of your speeches are irrespectively going to be used. So, but that's something that you would go know on the spot, whether you're proposition in round 1 or opposition in round 1. So it is going to be on the spot. So what we do is we release draws. We show, okay, if you are team 1, you're going proposition in room 1, and so on and so forth. So we will tell you which team you are, which room you're going to, which side you are, and who is going to go against you, and who is going to be your judge. So all of that is going to be told to you on the spot. Do not worry about any of that. Right now, what you need to worry about is your arguments, your speech, and your team. Okay. All right. So I think this has also been told to you that this is the structure. Government speaker speaks first, then opposition speaker 1, then government speaker 2, opposition speaker 2, government speaker 3, and opposition speaker 3. There is no reply speeches. It is modified APD. Do not ask me what reply speeches is. Again, you would get confused. Just try to focus on the first 3. And then lastly, you will have POIs. I think the structure generally looks like this. I think it's important just because so you know, that what is so how does it actually function in real debates. So there's going to be a judge in your room. The judge is going to be the housekeeper, which is going to be basically, I invite the first speaker from proposition to start the debate. So he is going to be the one, or they are going to be the one who are going to invite you to the stage and tell you that, this is the time when you're supposed to speak. So for example, I invite the third speaker from opposition and so on and so forth. But just remember, between the speeches, there is 15 seconds of grace period. So you can tell the judges, so why is it 15 seconds of grace period? For you to wrap up your thoughts and frame your speech. But again, your speech should be already framed to the most part. So for example, speaker 1 from proposition speaks first, and then followed by speaker 1 from opposition. So once speaker 1 is done, you will have 15 seconds of grace period before speaker 1 from opposition actually starts. So that's about the structure of your debate. Now I'm going to tell you how to frame arguments, but before that, can anyone tell me what is the general structure of speech? In the chat box. Whoever is annotating, don't. So yes, introduction, body, conclusion. So I think introduction is something that you already know, and conclusion is also something that you know. So introduction is supposed to be catchy, something that is able to create a hook to the audience, and introduction to the topic itself. And then you're going to conclude. So conclusion is going to be like a summary of whatever you said in your speech, highlight of your speech, etc. So that is introduction and that is conclusion. But what is body? I'm going to teach you how do you make good body of your speech. So body is basically arguments because it's a debate event. So how do you make arguments? Arguments are supposed to have 3 things. Can anyone tell me what are the parts of an argument in the chat box real quick? I'm giving you 30 seconds. Give me what are the parts of an argument. Okay, someone says claim, counterclaim, reasoning, evidence, Janvi. And then somebody else says new constructive clash with rebuttals. Okay. So the idea is that arguments are supposed to have 3 things. The first thing is claim, which is also called as assertion. The second thing is reasoning, and the third thing is example. Now, when you get the topic, the first thing that you need to do is obviously brainstorm and research. So research helps a lot of your part of brainstorming points. So what should I say if I'm supporting the motion? Think through, ask the question why, what, and how, and then try to elaborate on them. But brainstorming is the first step. So whenever you get the motion, read the motion thrice, and then go ahead and start pointing out what you can possibly run. For example, if the motion is this house would ban smoking, these are the claims that you can actually run. So you would think, oh, I think smoking should be banned because it's bad for health. It's bad because it harms other people. It wastes a lot of resources. It is bad for environment, so on and so forth. So you would have a bunch of ideas in your mind, but these are just ideas. And these ideas is actually your claims. But what's more important is how do you elaborate them? Because if you tell the judges, you know what, we should ban smoking because it impacts industries like medical industries, judges will have no clue why it impacts medical industry. So what you essentially have to do is elaborate on these points, give reasonings and examples to it. Examples can be evidences, statistics, illustrations, and so on and so forth. Now, what is going to be the reasoning? I'm going to tell you. But remember one thing, these claims are nothing without reasoning and valid examples. So I'm going to tell you another example as to how you can elaborate it. So brainstormed ideas, I know that, okay, these are the points that I can probably elaborate on. Now, the next thing that you would do is reason them out. So how does it happen? For example, if you're saying that smoking should be banned because it is bad for health, what is the reasoning to it? The first reason could be that it causes a lot of diseases. The second reason could be it risks your immune system. The third reason could be, the reason as to why it is harmful for your health. So the smoke enters your lungs, damages your body, leads to less circulation of oxygen in blood, raises blood pressure, etc. All in all, creates problems for your immune system and diseases. Now, this is all the reasoning that I gave. I also need to give an example for the same. Example could be the diseases that are caused by smoking. So the diseases that are actually caused by smoking are tuberculosis, cancer, diabetes, lung diseases or lung cancers also, heart strokes, etc. So this gives me more picturization of what you're actually saying. So make sure in your arguments that you're going to run on 5th of May, it should have a claim. So my first claim is we should ban smoking because it is bad for health. The reasoning for this, and you can go ahead and explain your reasoning, elaborate it well, give logical explanation to what you're saying, then go ahead and give an example. The example could be an illustration of what I have put here. So how does it actually happen? Or it could basically be like a proper statistic. So for example, 40% of people who actually smoke suffer from this particular disease. I'm not sure if that is true. I'm just trying to give you an example. Or for example, you can give a study which would be like research shows XYZ. So that's also very credible. The reason as to why examples are very important is because, again, it helps judges visualize your arguments, but it also helps the judges to know that what you're saying is actually credible and true. So this acts as an evidence to what you're saying. So again, evidences are really, really important. Okay, all those asking about topic, guys, this is just practice topic. I'm just using examples to make you understand how to make arguments. I will release your topics in just some time. So hold your thoughts, don't worry, just learn how to make arguments so you're actually able to apply these concepts while you're making your speeches. Okay, let's move forward then. Speaker roles. So speaker roles are important because I think if there are 3 speakers in a team, it's necessary to make sure that the debate does not become stagnant, because you're like, oh, I think the first speaker can give everything. No, why do we need the second speaker and third speaker? No, every speaker has a definite role, and we need every speaker for having a fruitful debate and for debate to actually grow throughout the debate round. So what it actually looks like is, for the first speaker from both sides is supposed to define key terms of the motion. For example, if the motion is this house would ban smoking, you would explain what the ban on smoking would look like and what smoking essentially is. Then you would mention all the arguments and then explain half of the arguments. What it essentially means is that if I am the first speaker, I will present all the arguments from my team. For example, we together as a team decide that these are the 5 arguments that we have to run in my speech. I will essentially go ahead and mention all 5 of them as a heading. So I will say, I will give my introduction, and then I'll go ahead and say, as proposition, we will provide to you 5 arguments. First argument, it is bad for health. Second, it could bother other people. Third, it leads to waste of resources. Fourth, it is bad for environment. Fifth, it impacts industries like medical industries. Now I'm going to move forward and explain the first 2 arguments, and my speaker will explain the next 3 arguments. So the speaker 1 is just giving a gist of what are the arguments, like the headings of all the arguments that you are going to run as a team. The speaker 1 is also explaining half of the arguments, and the speaker 2 is explaining the other half of the arguments. For example, as a team, if you come up with 6 arguments, the first speaker can give 3 arguments, the second speaker can give the rest of the 3 arguments. This makes sure that your content as a team is not stagnant and it is continuously evolving, but also you're using different arguments and the content is not become repetitive. So what else are you supposed to do? As second speaker, you're supposed to respond to the opposition's questions. What questions essentially mean are actually claims. So, for example, if your opponents basically make a claim, so for example, if they say, you know what, we shouldn't ban smoking because it is because you know what, it's like individuals' choices. If your opponent says this, you can, as the second speaker, go ahead and say that you know what, for the most amount of time, for the most amount of people, smoking is not the active choice of individuals. Oftentimes people observe other people and tend to start smoking in peer pressure, forceful, etc., and then eventually get addicted. And then you can probably give a statistic of how many college students actually ended up started smoking simply because of like peer pressure and all of that. So this basically responds to the claim of opponents. So what you're doing here, responding basically means proving why your opponents are wrong in the most basic terms. So second speaker, since the second speaker has listened to the opponents, second speaker can go ahead and respond to the opponents, explain rest of the arguments. And I think that's pretty much it for the second speaker. So second speaker is supposed to do two things: explain the rest of the arguments with good reasoning and examples, and go ahead and respond to your opponents. The third speaker then is going to do a couple of things. The first thing is, and I think this is something that you're not supposed to do as third speaker, do not give new arguments in third speech. What you can do is you can give explanations and reasonings and examples to the existing arguments that are being established by speaker one and speaker two, but you cannot at all give new argument whatsoever, which means if you have a set of 6 arguments, you cannot introduce a 7th argument in third speaker. What you can do is summarize all of the arguments that are completely given by your team by far, because I think by the end of like 4 speeches from both, like 2 speeches from each side, the judges are actually confused what proposition gave, what opposition gave. So third speaker acts as a wingman and somebody who's whipping the entire round, which is basically to clarify what's actually is happening. So clarify what has happened in the round. So make it clear to the judge as to what proposition is saying, what opposition is saying, and why your points matter more. So you have to make sure to tell the judges as to why your team wins against your opponents and why your team is better than your opponent. So probably find out flaws in your opponent. So find out as to what your opponents try to say is probably wrong or probably is like flawful, etc., etc. So that's what third speaker does. I'm now going to take questions in the chat box. Yes, you can use quotes in your POIs. Sorry, in your speeches. Are there rebuttals behind for middle category? Yes. No, I don't think banning smoking is actually in inequitable to any of the sides, because on opposition you can talk about multiple things. And I want you to research about this. So governments of majority of the countries actually receive a large amount of taxation from like cigarette industries and like smoking. So it actually helps generating like revenue for the government. So I think it's pretty good for opposition as well, which is why most governments haven't yet banned it. But also banning a particular thing does not mean the access to it actually is reduced. For example, a lot of things are actually illegal in India, for example, drugs, marijuana, etc. But on-ground reality is that you can still access them through black markets. So which means even if you ban smoking, people would still be able to access cigarettes from black markets. So on opposition, you can run as well. Some way you don't have reply switches. POIs are basically questions that you can ask your opponents. So what essentially it means is that, for example, and again, you can only ask POIs from your opposition. You cannot ask POIs from your own team. So what it basically looks like is there are multiple ways to ask questions. For example, if a speaker is saying something and you have a doubt about what they're saying, or if you have a question that basically would disprove what they're saying, you can basically raise that question. And you can only raise that question between the first minute to the last. So between the first minute to the last minute means you cannot raise it in the first minute and the last minute. You can only raise it from 2 minutes to the third minute. So I think the idea is that you can basically put it in the chat box. So for example, you can put POI, or you can basically raise your hand, or you can basically have a card which says POI and show it. So if the speaker wants to take the POI, they can say accepted, otherwise they can reject it. Speakers can reject POIs or accept it. It's completely on their discretion. That is what POI is. Yes, if somebody on opposition says something wrong, you can basically mention that in your speech and basically answer in your speech. Great, guys. I'm now going to give you guys topics, but before that, how are judges going to be marking you? So judges are marking you on 3 levels: matter, manner, and method. Matter is the strength of your arguments, research, and like whether it was relevant. Manner is how you're speaking. So do you have voice modulation? Did you have good body language? Did you make eye contact? Did you have like hand gestures, etc.? Then method is the structure of your speech. Did you stick to the time limit? Did you elaborate your points? Did you rebut your opponents? Did you take POIs? Did you like offer POIs? All of that is going to be seen. So you are holistically evaluated by the judges. So please make sure that you're preparing well. If that is clear, let's move to the topic.
Yeah, just 1 second. Kushal, stop pinging on the group immediately. You don't have to re-ping 20 times as if we can't read. Hold on. Listen to what ma'am is saying. Yeah. So she's going to declare the topic shortly, and I will come to team attendance in a minute and address all the questions. So focus on what ma'am is saying. Don't play around on the chat box. Yeah, Afrin, sorry, take over.
Okay, then motion release. So motion for round 1 and round 2 reads this. This house believes that economic sanctions are more effective than military interventions. This is the topic for round 1 and round 2. The context for this is for you to know what economic sanctions are and what military sanctions are. So economic sanctions are penalties or restrictions imposed by one country or a group of countries on another country, typically aimed at influencing the behavior of a targeted country. Examples could be of economic sanctions are trade restrictions, financial penalties, etc. So oftentimes what ends up happening is that if you see that a particular country is doing something bad or something unfavorable, other countries can change that behavior by putting economic sanctions on them. So for example, not buying or like not importing materials from that country and so on and so forth. So that is economic sanctions. Now again, why does it matter to these countries? For example, if somebody restricts the way how India exports, that's going to harm economy of India. And if economy of India is harmed, that's going to be bad for India in totality. So that is why economic sanctions are put. So these are economic sanctions. The other part of the motion says military interventions. Military interventions are simple. It's basically use of military force, threat, force compelling, etc. For example, military interventions, airstrikes, invasions, territorial invasions, all of that. So there are 2 ways how you can actually change the behavior of particular countries. I think you might have already known a lot of countries have put like sanctions on Israel. A lot of countries have put sanctions on like Russia and companies from Russia and all of that because of the ongoing war situation. So based on that context, the motion says, are economic sanctions more effective or military interventions more effective? Again, effective in being able to change the behavior of the country, but also are there any adverse harms on these countries? So proposition would say that economic sanctions are more effective than military interventions. Opposition would say economic sanctions are basically bad, military intervention is good. Remember that this topic is actually a comparative. So on proposition, if you're telling the benefits of economic sanctions, you would also have to tell the harms of military intervention. On opposition, if you're saying harms of economic sanctions, you should also tell the benefits of military interventions. There's no one-way road. So context, read it multiple times, you would be able to understand it. Research about why economic sanctions are more effective or why military interventions aren't effective. Read through properly and then you would be able to understand it better. But are there any questions in the chat box?
Just to clarify also, for few folks who are pinging over here, your round 1 and round 2 topic is the same, which means that if in round 1 you get for the motion, Kushagra, then in round 2 you'll automatically go against the motion. So jab aap prepare karoge, when you will prepare, you will anyways prepare for both the sides. Got it? Okay, good. And don't worry about the team. I'm coming to the team in 5 minutes. Please wait. Just ask.
Please ask any questions that you have for the topic because you have to start preparing for it.
Yeah, you first focus on the topic.
The round 3 topic will be released on the spot, 30 minutes of prep time.
Yeah. So Round 1 and round 2 are prepared. You already have the motion. You will prepare for both the sides. Your speeches are 4 minutes each. As a team, you should decide who's going to be the first speaker, second speaker, third speaker. We know a lot of you have joined in dynamically, which means that you're not probably from the same school. So I'm going to take the attendance and then share contacts so that you get to know your team members. Okay. There is no cross questioning. I think one of the child is asking. There is no cross questioning over here. There is only points of information, which means that you can ask your opposing team. Okay. In the chat box, quickly, any questions? Third round question, like ma'am said, is going to be on the spot, but we will give you prep time. Okay, because you are slightly senior category. So no prepared motion on the third round. Okay, lovely. With that, what I'm going to do, I think majority of the questions that you're asking is the same. Just 1 second. Okay. So you can pause your questions again, and we will go ahead and listen to the recording once again. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do the attendance for your team so that you connect you over here. Okay, I'm going to answer some of the questions that you were asking. One is the fact that, let me quickly do this. Just give me 1 second. Will you finish? Okay. For the third round, we'll give you around 30 minutes to prepare. Don't re-ping your question. I can read it once, right? Don't re-ping the same question again and again. 30 minutes is what we're going to give you. Senior category, Siddharth, we'll post it on your group, so don't ping over here. Motion topic ma'am has already released. Judges are not going to ask you the question. Avni, I'm just going to release the attendance for the Asian parliamentary debate teams. If your name is not there, then it automatically means you are in turn 4. Okay. Yes, POI Kinishka, any person in the third member opposing team can answer. Okay. And like ma'am said that you get a 30-second break before asking another POI because you don't want to heckle. That's rude, right? Yeah, I think majority of the questions are sorted. No, Aishwarya, the whole topic remains for the same team. So the question kya tha? Question was about comparing military. I mean, it's like a little bit of punishment, na? Should I, as a punishment to a country who's at war, give them economic sanctions or military intervention? So you have to think about the topic in entirety. Debating the beauty in debating is that when your parents say that you will not go down to play, okay, and you're debating with a parent. I'll give you a very simple example because I know a lot of you are new. Let me stop recording. 1 second.